What's up, everybody? I'm Clayton. Welcome back to Ages of Film. I got another ranking for you guys today. As you can see by the title, we are going to be ranking all of John Carpenter's films. This is the first director filmography that I've ranked on my channel. I have done an actor filmography ranking, which was Tom Hanks. I had ranked all of Tom Hanks' movies. If you want to see that video, it's in the archives. You can go find it on my channel. So I'm going to start with directors now. So this is the first director's filmography that I'm ranking here. So we're going to be ranking all of John Carpenter's feature films. So this is not going to be including short films. This is only his feature films. It will be including his straight-to-TV movies, because although typically a feature film is a film that is released in theaters and has a theatrical release, it doesn't always necessarily mean it's going to be a theatrical release. A feature film is more based on the runtime of a movie. So we're looking at all of his feature films, both TV movie and theatrical released films. Total, we have 21 movies to rank that were directed by Carpenter. So that's what we're doing today. If you're new to my channel, hit that like button. It helps the channel out greatly. And if you're enjoying the content, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. It's another way to help out the channel. All right, all that being said, I'm going to get into this ranking video. And just as a disclaimer, this is just my opinion on these movies. You can disagree with me. Feel free to disagree with me in the comment section. Let me know how you would rank Carpenter's filmography and how you would differentiate from my list. This isn't the right list. It's just my list, and it's how I would rank these movies. Also, I just kind of want to lay out some rules for how I rate a movie. So I work with a 5-star rating system, and the way I kind of do my rating is I factor in 3 different criteria. One of them being the technical side of the filmmaking process. How well made is the movie? How well put together is it? You know, that's the directing, the cinematography, the set design, the acting, all that stuff. How well made is the movie? The technical side of it. So I give about a 1.5 star for 1.5 stars for that. The second criteria that I use is the emotional impact that the movie has on me. So I give about 1.5 star for that. And then the enjoyment, or the rewatch value, I should say, of the movie. And that gets a total of 2 stars worth of rating. So you put those 3 criteria together, you can do the math, you get 5 stars. So that's how I go about with my rating. So there might be certain movies on this list that you might say, well, that movie is a better made film than a movie that's higher on this list. And that might be true, but the film that is higher might have more going for it. It might have a stronger emotional impact on me. It might be more rewatchable than another film on here. So factoring in those 3 criteria, that's how I come to my ratings for movies. So that out of the way, let's get into ranking all 21 of John Carpenter's films. Starting from the bottom, as always, working our way up to number 1. If you've been with me for any length of time, you probably have a good idea as to what my number 1 is going to be, but that's not going to stop us because we're going to rank them anyway. So here we go. Starting from the bottom, number 21 on my list, I have Ghosts of Mars from, I think it was 2001-ish, I want to say, is when this one came out. This is a 1.5 star film, and I'll just go ahead and say there's only, I think, 3 movies on this list that I would say are bad films. There's a couple that I would say are decent, and then everything else I would call a good film. So just keep that in mind. John Carpenter, I think, is a great director. He's had way more hits than he has misses. But I do think Ghosts of Mars is his weakest film that he has done. It just, from a technical side, I don't think it's very well made. Way too much CGI involved that doesn't look very good. The production design looks terrible. The performances aren't very good. The story is garbage. There's not a single character in the film that I really care for or care about, and it really had no emotional impact on me. So it was kind of disappointing to see this movie and to see how weak it was, knowing what Carpenter was capable of and knowing the kind of quality that he had put out all throughout his career. It was disappointing, to say the least, coming to this movie and watching it and just not really getting anything out of it, not really enjoying it. So I would have Ghosts of Mars as his worst film, 1.5 stars. Not a very good film, not one that I would recommend, and not one that I would probably ever go back to again. So number 21, Ghosts of Mars. Coming in at number 20, we have Dark Star. I believe this was from 1974. Could be wrong on that, but I think it was 1974. This was his first feature film. It was kind of a student film, a beginner film, if you want to call it that. But it was a feature film. It did meet the runtime requirement of a feature film. I think it was even released for a temporary time in limited theaters when it was made. So it is a feature film. This was his first one that he did. It's not very good. There are people out there that do like this film and do have it rated pretty high. I'm just not one of those people. I understand that this was a student film. I understand this was his first one. I understand that he's trying some different things. He's going for it. I can respect that. But as a viewing experience, it's just not very good. It doesn't really have any type of rewatch value to it. I don't think it's very well made. Obviously, it didn't have a large budget, so that's not helping it at all. And then again, it didn't really have any emotional punch to it for me. So yeah, Dark Star, also 1.5 star film. The reason I would put this above Ghosts of Mars is if I had to rewatch one of these movies, I would throw on Dark Star before watching Ghosts of Mars again. That's pretty much just comes down to the bonker craziness of Dark Star. It's a crazy film. It's wild. There's some just bizarre, loony, crazy things that happen in it. So I could get a little more entertainment out of it for that reason than I can for Ghosts of Mars. So if I had to rewatch one of these two again, I would be more likely to rewatch Dark Star before rewatching Ghosts of Mars. That's why it takes the edge. Any movie that is tied with other movies for a specific rating, I rank them in regards to which is the most rewatchable, and that's kind of how I rank movies that are tied with a specific rating that I give it. So yeah, Dark Star a little bit more rewatchable than Ghosts of Mars. Still not a good movie. 1.5 stars. It's my number 20. Coming in at number 19, we have Memoirs of an Invisible Man from 1992, I believe, or 1991 maybe. Starring Chevy Chase, directed by, of course, John Carpenter. I honestly, I didn't know what to expect coming to this movie. You see Chevy Chase name on the title, and you naturally assume it's going to be a comedy, but you also have John Carpenter directing it, and John Carpenter doesn't really direct comedies, so it's like you're left wondering, what is this film going to be? Is this going to be comedy? Is it going to be horror? Is it going to be like drama? Like, what exactly is it? And you watch it, and I was left at the end of this movie still asking myself that question. What exactly was this movie supposed to be? I couldn't quite understand what Carpenter was going for. I couldn't see a clear directorial vision that he had for this film. It was very kind of confusing as far as what exactly it was that he was trying to do, what it was that he was trying to say, or what type of movie he was trying to make. There were moments in the film, comedic moments in the film, that did actually get a laugh out of me, but the theme of the movie was not comedic. It wasn't a comedy movie, although there were humorous scenes in the film. I just feel like this movie it doesn't quite know what it's supposed to be. I did find some of the characters likable. I thought Chevy Chase's character was a likable character. I thought his love interest in the movie was a likable character. So I could get behind a couple of the characters in this movie. I do think it has some quality to it as well from a technical side of things. But the rewatch value for me is what kind of lacks here. It's not a very rewatchable movie. If I wanted to watch a Chevy Chase film, there are several movies of his that I would throw on before getting to Memoirs again. And if I wanted to watch a John Carpenter film, there are several John Carpenter movies I would throw on before coming to this one again. So this is a 2-star film. I don't think it's a very good movie, but it does have a couple of things going for it that are at least respectable, and a couple of things that I can appreciate. Again, some of the characters I thought were well written. I could see some technical proficiency with the movie, but overall, from a viewing experience, not a whole lot there. So 2-star film. Memoirs of an Invisible Man is my number 19. Moving on to number 18, we have Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires from 1998. I believe this was released. This is kind of a mixed film. There seems to be a camp of people, a group of people that love this movie, and then there's a camp and a group of people that aren't very big on this movie. I kind of fall in the middle. I don't think this is a bad film, but I wouldn't call it a good movie either. To me, this is just a decent film. It's a 2.5-star film. I think it's got some things going for it. I like the practical effects that Carpenter uses. I like a couple of the performances were pretty good. Some of the characters were entertaining and likable characters. It's got some stuff going for it. It's got somewhat of rewatch value, not a lot, but there is some there. So overall, when I weigh the pros and cons, it kind of falls here in the middle. Decent. It's not the best vampire movie by a long shot, but it's not the worst vampire movie by a long shot. So yeah, I'm kind of indifferent to it. I can kind of take or leave it. If someone wanted to throw it on, okay, cool. I can get something out of it. But if I never saw this movie again, I wouldn't be losing any sleep over it. So Vampires, number 18. Moving on to number 17. This one might get me in a little bit of trouble. I'm going with Big Trouble in Little China, a movie that has garnered a cult following over the years. There's a lot of people that seem to really enjoy this movie. For me, again, a decent movie. I'm not dogging the film. I'm not trashing it. It's a 2.5-star movie for me. I think that Kurt Russell is entertaining as always. For me, what brings this movie back is the story is just not a story that's really compelling to me. It's kind of a weird story that I don't really get invested in. And when I don't get fully invested in the story, it's hard for me to get invested with the characters of the story. And so that kind of, that pulls this film down some for me, holds it back from being higher on this list. Also, I think some of the supporting performances, not Kurt Russell, but some of the surrounding performances are kind of weak in a number of areas. I think some of the dialogue is a little cringe in some places, but overall, like I said, a decent film. I don't think it's bad. I'm not saying this is a bad film, but I wouldn't go as far to say it was a good film. Between this and Vampires, again, both movies that are 2.5 stars, I would be more likely to rewatch this one over Vampires because I do find it a little more rewatchable and entertaining. So Big Trouble in Little China is my number 17. Coming in at number 16, we have Someone's Watching You. This was a TV film that was released in, I believe it was 1979, or no, I think it was actually 1978. I think this was actually done the same year that Halloween was made. So I think Someone's Watching You was 1978 as well. TV movie, straight to TV, but it is a feature film. It does meet the runtime requirement of a feature film. This is a good film. So from here on up, I would say all of these movies are good movies. So all of these would have 3-star rating and higher, and would be movies that I would actually recommend. So, and this one being one of them. I did have a good time with Someone's Watching You. I think it was well made. I think there's some artistic proficiency going into it by Carpenter. I like the lead character, this lady that we're following throughout this film. I think she has some depth to her character. She's got some sensitivity to her character, some vulnerability to that character that makes you feel for her. But it's also, I think Carpenter does a really good job at bringing you in, making you invest, and hooking you into the story. The story itself isn't very complicated, but Carpenter directs it very well and keeps you, at least for me in my viewing experience, kept me very much invested throughout the film. It is somewhat dated, and that is one of the minor criticisms I have with it. It doesn't hold up as well as some of his other films do. It does feel a little bit dated. Some of the score in here doesn't really quite reach the iconic Carpenter score that he has in some of his other movies. So there are some things working against it. You can tell it didn't really have the budget of a theatrical film. That's another kind of thing that keeps it back a little bit. But overall, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it. I give it 3 stars. It's my number 16. Bringing us to number 15, the latest and the last of John Carpenter's movies, which is The Ward from 2010, horror film starring Amber Heard. I did not think I was going to like this movie going into it. Don't ask me why. I don't know why I thought I wasn't going to like it. I just, going into it, kind of reading about it, and from some of the stuff I've heard from other people, I just didn't think I was going to like it. I was actually pleasantly surprised. I did enjoy this movie. I think Carpenter directed suspense very well. You can definitely tell he had definitely a bigger budget for this film than he had with some of his earlier films that he worked on. I thought the quality was pretty good. The directing was good. I thought Amber Heard did a good job actually carrying this film. She was believable in her role. I thought she acted the role well. It was, and I had a decent time with it as far as the entertainment aspect goes. I did think it was, I did find it, somewhat rewatchable. I thought that there was a couple of moments in the film that did actually have somewhat of an emotional impact there. Not a lot, it's not an emotional film, but there was, there was some feelings there. So yeah, overall, The Ward, a good movie. Again, 3-star movie, but with, as I mentioned earlier, any movie that have the same rating as other movies, I rank them based on the rewatch value, and I do think The Ward is a little more rewatchable for me than Someone's Watching You. But yeah, 3-star film, good movie. I would recommend it. Coming in at number 14, we have Elvis, another TV movie. This one, I think, was from 1979, starring Kurt Russell, playing Elvis. And I thought he did a really good job. He actually looks a lot like Elvis in this movie. I thought he sounded a lot like Elvis in this movie. And I think Kurt Russell actually gives Austin Butler some competition. I think he gives him a run for his money for best Elvis performance in a film. Austin Butler was phenomenal in Elvis, but I thought Kurt Russell, especially for a lower budget TV movie from 1979, I thought Kurt Russell nailed it. I thought he played it brilliantly. And I am fascinated by Elvis' story, and I thought that it was a story that I could invest in, enjoy. Obviously, Elvis is a legend, so it was an enjoyable time. I thought it was well made, well directed, and overall a good movie. So Elvis TV movie coming in at number 14 for me. At number 13, we have Village of the Damned from 1995. This one starring Christopher Reeve, aka Superman, in this film. A movie that tends to get some shade thrown on it by a lot of critics. A lot of people seem to not really like this movie a whole lot. I'm not sure why. My experience with this movie is pretty positive. I actually like this movie quite a bit. I thought Christopher Reeve did a great job. I think he's an underrated actor. From the movies that I've seen him in, I think he does a great job, and he's definitely got some acting talent. You put him in a John Carpenter directed horror film, you're gonna get something that's pretty good, and I think that's what you get here. I don't think it's either guy's best work. I don't think it's Christopher Reeve's best work. I don't think it's John Carpenter's best work. There are problems, I think, with with some of the stuff in the story and the script, but overall, I think it's good. I think it has more of an emotional punch to it than the films below it, with the exception of maybe Elvis. But overall, yeah, it's a good movie, and I would. This is the one of these movies so far that has the most rewatch value to it. So, yeah, Village of the Damned, good movie, 3 stars, and yeah, I enjoy it. That brings us to number 12. My number 12, I have In the Mouth of Madness from 1993 or 1994 maybe. Another John Carpenter horror film that's pretty good. I'm not as big on this movie as a lot of other people seem to be. I've seen a number of YouTubers out there actually rate this movie pretty high, and that's great. You know, if that's their experience, if that's your experience with this movie, that's awesome. I love that people love certain movies that I don't. You know, it is what it is. You like what you like, so you're never going to hear me judging or poking fun at someone for liking a certain movie that I'm not as big on. And I do like this movie. That's the thing. I do like this movie. It's a 3-star film. I enjoy it. I have a good time with it. I'm just not as big on it as some other people are. I'm not as big on it as I am on some of his other films that he's done. But it's not to say that I don't like it, because I do. I think it gets a little weird for my taste. That's coming from someone that gave props to a film earlier for being kind of weird, but there's weird that is entertaining, and then there's weird that's not very entertaining. And some of the weirdness of this film I didn't find all that entertaining. The story doesn't fully connect with me either, and I also don't think it packs much of an emotional punch to it either. So those are just some things that hold it back a little bit for me, but it is entertaining. I did have a good time with it, and I do think it's a good movie. So, In the Mouth of Madness is my number 12. Coming in at number 11, we have Body Bags. Now, this is the one movie on this list that you could argue isn't a John Carpenter film. And the reason I say that is because he actually co-directed this movie with Tobe Hooper. They kind of tag teamed this movie together. So this movie, if you haven't seen Body Bags, it's a movie that's made up of different stories, different segments, different chapters, and it comes together as one complete film. But John Carpenter directed most of the segments in this movie. He directed more segments than Tobe Hooper did. He had the highest percentage of directing in this film. So by that, by that acknowledgement, you could actually classify this as a John Carpenter film, as I do. I do consider this a John Carpenter movie. Again, he had the higher percentage of directing in this movie. He directed the most of the segments. Most of the runtime was his directing. So I do classify it as a John Carpenter movie. If you exclude this from your Carpenter ranking, I don't have a problem with that. I understand why. But for me, if you directed more than 55 or 60% of the movie, you directed the movie. It is credited to you as your film. So, and Body Bags for me it's a fun movie, man. It's a lot of fun. Seeing a whole bunch of different people in there from the horror community. We even get a cameo from Wes Craven in the movie, which is crazy to think that you had Wes Craven, John Carpenter, and Tobe Hooper all in one film together. Like, that's crazy to me, but you do. So I love the different segments. I think the first segment and the last segment, I think, are probably my two favorites. But yeah, overall, it's a good movie. I have a good time with it. It is rewatchable, and it is my number 11. Moving into number 10, our top 10 now. For me, my number 10 is Escape from L.A., the second of the Escape movies with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. I think this one is quite a bit weaker than Escape from New York. For one, I don't think it looks as good. I think some of the CGI doesn't doesn't hold up very well. I think one of the things that made New York more enjoyable was the practical effects, the set designs, and the production design in it looked actually really good because a lot of it was actually on location type of stuff and shooting and filming. Escape from LA, it's a lot more like CGI type of stuff, computer stuff in there that just doesn't look as good to me. I also kind of just feel it's a repeat, a wash, rinse, and repeat of New York, just not quite as good. The characters in it I don't find as engaging or as entertaining as the cast and the characters from New York. Kurt Russell is great. You know, Snake Plissken is a great character, one of my favorite characters of Kurt Russell. I love that character. He's such just a cool and just, you know, badass character that he is a lot of fun, and he's very entertaining. So, and I do still think it's a fun action movie. I do. It's not as good as the first one. So, Escape from LA is my number 10. Coming in at number 9, we have They Live from 1988, I believe was when this movie came out. This is our first 3.5 star film, so we're kind of going up a notch now as far as tier. If we were tier ranking it, we're kind of going up to another level here. 3.5 star film for They Live. Really enjoy this movie. It's, you know, you get Roddy Piper in this movie from professional wrestling as the lead character, and he actually does a pretty good job, in my opinion. I think he does actually carry the film pretty well. There's an awesome brawl and fight scene in this movie that's actually like a 10-minute fight scene. It's actually pretty cool. It's like a WWE street fight in this movie. It's pretty entertaining, but the story is also, it's a very unique story. I'm fascinated. I'm invested with the story and seeing, you know, how it's going to play out, how it's going to come to a climax. And I do think it holds up on rewatch too. It is also not just an interesting story, but it's an entertaining film to me. So, I like some of the effects work that Carpenter does here as well. So They Live is my number 9, 3.5 star movie. I enjoyed that one quite a bit. Coming at number 8, we have Assault on Precinct 13 from, I think, 1977 or 1976. This was, again, early Carpenter. I think this was only his second film. After Dark Star, he did Assault on Precinct 13, and this is actually a really good movie. I enjoy this one quite a bit. I just love the tone of this movie, the setting, the atmosphere. I love like hold up stories. You know, where you have a group of people that are held up in a building somewhere, and they're trying to survive, and you know the people are picked off one by one. I love those type of stories and those type of movies. You give that to John Carpenter, and you're going to get a pretty good film. That's what you get here. You can definitely see as far as the visuals and the cinematography, you can definitely see the influence of Carpenter and him really kind of coming into his own as a director. You can start seeing that he's establishing a directorial style to his film. He has a visual style to his movies now. By this point, Dark Star was kind of a learning experience, and then here he's finding his rhythm, finding that style that he would be noted for, and the characters are entertaining as well. So some crazy stuff happens in it. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go and do so. I don't want to spoil anything. I'm trying to keep all this spoiler free, but some crazy stuff happens. Fun movie, a good movie, 3.5 stars. It is my number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have The Fog from 1980. I really enjoy this movie. I think that you do get a lot of the cast from Halloween in this one. You know, it stars Jamie Lee Curtis. She's one of the main characters in this movie. You get another really good Carpenter score in the film. You get a great tone and atmosphere. Also, it also does actually get pretty scary in a couple of scenes that are pretty gnarly scenes in it. For a kind of a ghost movie from 1980, it actually works, and it actually, Carpenter builds the suspense. I've said it for years. I think Carpenter builds suspense as well as anybody. I mean, him and Hitchcock, man, are right up there. On doing, they're in a class of their own as far as when it comes to building suspense in a film. Those two guys, man, they know how to get it done. So yeah, it's enjoyable. It's a fun movie. I think it's well made. I think it definitely has an emotional effect on me as far as the anticipation, the not so much fear, but the suspense, that feeling of uneasiness, being on edge. You know, that's an emotional effect. You know, when you hear emotional impact, a lot of people just tend to think emotional, so the movie has to make me cry. But no, a movie can have an emotional effect or impact on you in a number of ways. A movie can traumatize you and scare the crap out of you. That's an emotional effect, an emotional impact that the movie had. A movie can make you laugh your socks off. That's an emotional response, an emotional effect that the movie had on you. So it doesn't just have to be, did it move me to tears? It's, did it have an emotional effect of some kind? And to me, The Fog absolutely had that for me, as far as having that, causing that feeling of tension throughout the film. It was definitely there for me. So yeah, The Fog, very good film. Definitely enjoy it. It is my number 7, also 3.5-star film. Coming in at number 6, we have Starman. And I will just say, from here on up, Starman on up, these are now 4-star and higher movies. So Starman, I would consider a great film, a 4-star film. That is a great film for me. And I think Starman is a great film. It stars Jeff Bridges. This is from 1984, I believe. Carpenter does kind of he dabbles in the sci-fi element. This isn't a horror film. This is a sci-fi movie with the guy I just mentioned, Jeff Bridges. Sorry, you guys know how I am with names. Jeff Bridges, it plays this alien that has come to Earth. He's trying to learn about human life and human ways. He meets this girl, and he's learning a lot about humanity from this woman, from this lady. And I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it definitely has an emotional effect. That third act, and specifically the ending of this movie, it hits pretty hard. I think it definitely has. Well, it's one of the strongest emotional effects in John Carpenter's movies, in my opinion. I think it has one of the strongest emotional effects. You definitely, at least for me, and the people that I've talked to that have also seen this movie, agree that ending is, it hits pretty hard. So thoroughly enjoyed it. It is a great film, very well made, has that emotional effect, and I did find it entertaining. So Starman, 4-star film, is my number 6. Coming in at number 5, we have Prince of Darkness from 1987. Love this movie, guys. Another great movie, 4-star film. John Carpenter. We get Donald Pleasance in this movie as well, coming back to work with Carpenter again. He plays this priest character in the movie that's trying to tell these people about Armageddon is coming. It's about to happen. Things get really eerie and creepy. Things get crazy. There are some great practical effects work by Carpenter in this movie. A killer score, man. One of my favorite Carpenter scores in this movie. That opening score and beat, they're like the first 10 minutes. It's a sick beat, man. It's a great score. And then all throughout this movie, you get Alice Cooper soundtrack in it. You get, pretty entertaining characters for the most part. And yeah, it's just a fun ride, man. It's a movie I don't hear talked about a whole lot by people that are Carpenter fans, but for me, this is definitely one of his best. I mean, it's sitting here at number 5 for me on my Carpenter ranking list. So yeah, 4-star film. I love it. Great movie. It's my number 5. Coming in at number 4, we have Escape from New York. Yes, the better of the two escape movies with John Carpenter and Kurt Russell. I've already kind of touched on this movie. It does everything that Escape from LA does, only does it better. It's got a better cast of characters. It's more entertaining. I think Kurt Russell, it kind of coming into that character of Snake Plissken, I think he plays that character better in this one because he's a little more mysterious in this film and a little more edgy in this film as well, in my opinion. And I like that about Snake. Just again, a super cool character, man. Just he's an awesome character. I love Snake Plissken, one of my favorite Kurt Russell characters. I thought Carpenter directed this movie very well. I love the tone of this film, and also a great score, and just a blast. Super fun movie, very rewatchable. It's my number 4, also a 4-star film. Coming into number 3, top 3 now. My number 3, you guys can probably figure out what these top 3 are because there's only 3 movies left, and they're probably his 3 most iconic films. I know Escape from New York is up there, but these 3 movies are, I would say, probably the 3 movies he will be most remembered for. How I rank them, you're about to find out. My number 3 is Christine from 1982. I love this movie, guys. This is a 4.5-star film, another tier up, almost that 5-star level. 4.5 stars, man. Love this movie, Christine. I've done a review of this movie on my channel, so if you want to see my fuller thoughts of it, my full review, go check it out on the channel. Love this movie. It's just the opening soundtrack, bad to the bone, just awesome opening score, great car, great characters, great direction in this movie, some awesome scenes. I mean, a car trying to kill someone at night while on fire. I mean, if that doesn't scream awesomeness, then I don't know what awesomeness is. Yeah. Christine is awesome, man. Anyone who would have Christine lower than their top 10 is just they're on crack, man. Like, I don't know. You like what you like, man. You like what you like. I get it, but to me, I couldn't see how you could have Christine not in your top 10 for Carpenter films, man. This is just, it's amazeballs. It's amazeballs. It's yeah. It's a can of beans, man. It's awesome. I love it. I won't spend too much time on it. Again, I've done a full review of it. It's my number 3. That leaves our top 2. And I will just go ahead and say that both of my top 2 here are 5-star films. Carpenter has 2 5-star films for me. Both of these movies I consider perfection. They're both masterpieces, and they are 2 of my favorite horror films of all time. They're 2 of my favorite movies of all time. I love both of these movies to death, and I honestly would not be upset if anyone swapped these two, I really wouldn't be bothered by it. I really wouldn't, because both of these, again, are 5-star movies. They are perfect movies for me. In my subjective experience, they are perfect. My number 2 is The Thing from 1982. Dude, The Thing is just, it may be, as far as technical side of things, the filmmaking quality, this may be Carpenter's best work. If anyone wanted to argue that and say Carpenter's best movie from a technical side of things is The Thing, I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't argue with you. The Thing is brilliant. It's brilliantly directed. It's brilliantly acted. It's brilliantly written. The practical effects here are legendary. I mean, this movie has some of the best practical effects work you'll see, period, in any movie. It just, in a great group of characters. That's the other thing. Like, all these characters are entertaining. The Doctor is super entertaining. Kurt Russell as McCready is super entertaining. And just the mystery in this film of not knowing who is the thing, who has the thing. And as this creature, this alien species is just picking people off one by one. I love the tone, the atmosphere of this movie set in the cold and the Arctic. The cinematography is just beautiful. Love the cinematography in this movie. The great lighting, composition, great camera work. Love the cinematography. The score is phenomenal in it as well. Just a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. What else can I say? Drop the mic. It's a masterpiece. I love it. Anytime someone wants to throw on The Thing, man, I am game. I am game for that. Love The Thing. And that leaves us with number 1. And again, if you're not new to my channel, this is going to be no surprise to anybody. If you are new to my channel, this may or may not be a surprise. I don't know. But certainly people that have been kicking it with me for a while, this is going to be no surprise to them. My number 1 is obviously the only Carpenter movie I haven't mentioned, and that is, of course, Halloween, baby. 1978. In my opinion, the greatest horror film ever made. In my opinion, Carpenter's best film of his career. In my opinion, the best slasher film ever made. It's the best. It's the cream of the crop. It's, it's a can of corn, man. I love Halloween. It's my favorite horror film of all time. Michael Myers is my favorite movie character of all time. I'm a Michael Myers fanatic. Yeah, I love Michael. He's my boy. I will ride or die with Michael till the end of time. And Halloween is just, it's a classic. It's rewatchable. It's got a very strong emotional effect. For me, it has the nostalgia effect, but it's also the suspense effect, the horror effect. It's got a profound emotional effect on me. It still holds up today. Still entertaining, still well made. There are layers to this movie that a lot of people don't even realize, but yeah, there's so many different things that you can get out of this movie upon multiple viewings of it. It never grows old for me, and yeah, it was the first horror film I ever saw. It's my favorite horror movie to this day. I don't think any horror movie will ever top Halloween for me. So there you go, guys. Halloween, my favorite horror movie of all time, but also my favorite John Carpenter movie, obviously, of all time. That's it. Those are all of John Carpenter's movies ranked. hope you guys enjoy this video. Let me know in the comments section how you would rank Carpenter's filmography. Have you seen all these? Do you agree with my list? Let me know anything and everything you want to comment about in the comment section. All I ask that you be respectful. And until next time, kick it and rock on.